you're the kind of person who, when you get mad, you punch a wall one time, and then or whatever, and then you'll be embarrassed by that, and you'll plead with somebody that's not who I am. You don't know why you did it, but guess what? It absolutely is who you are. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done it. You know it's a lemon tree because lemons come out of it. You know it's an apple tree because apples come from it. You know that you're an angry person who punches walls when you get angry because you punched a wall when you got angry. Oh, but one thing, one time doesn't determine me. No, but it certainly points to you, doesn't it? Because we oftentimes think also, I have to look into why I'm so troubled. That's not it, man. Also look at why you're so good. Look at why you're so positive. Look at the things that have gone right in your life that have set you forward to a positive path. I had a poetry professor who once gave me the best advice I ever got with regards to reading poetry. Turns out it works really, really well with all things that you read. He said if you find yourself stuck trying to figure out what the poems mean, he said, read the words in the order in which they're printed. That's it. Read the words in the order in which they're printed. Too often when we read poetry, we come in with a presupposition. Oh, it's gonna mean something else. It's gonna be something obscure. It's gonna be unclear. No. It's gonna be about love. No. Don't bring your presuppositions into it. This quote's interesting to me only because the quote itself isn't interesting to me, but talking with students is interesting to me because we bring in a lot of these presuppositions when we look at this one. It's very concise, it's very short, but it's also very precise. We live trapped, okay, so we're here, we're trapped between what? Between the churned up and examined past. So what does it mean that we've churned up and examined our past? You hit on it, Darren.
We kind of mix it up and we reflect on it.
Yeah, so when you're looking at, so there's a past that's dominated by reflection. So we're looking at, what is it that has happened in my past? Why am I the way that I am? And this makes sense. When we talk about people going to therapists and all that, keep in mind, man, psychology is really new. Psychology is really new. It's just over 100 years old. When we're talking about chemistry, thousands of years old. Biology, thousands of years old. Psychology is a really, really new study, man. It really starts actually with her father, Sigmund Freud. And then we have, of course, people who kind of flow from there. But we're only looking at a subject that's about 100, 120 years old or so. And, in fact, it's so new that there weren't even really tight rules for governing it until, maybe 40 years ago. So when you look at experiments that were done, in the 50s and the 40s and the 60s, they did some really outrageous stuff to people, man. They experimented on people without telling them. Maybe have created a serial killer or two, literally, through university studies. And so right now when we look at it and we say, well, we're understanding these things so much better now. Of course, because we've gotten some time with it now. So it's becoming more common. It's becoming more commonplace. For example, this whole idea that your early childhood experiences impact who you become, and that you can understand your present behavior by looking at what's happened to you in your past, that starts with her dad. That's how recent this stuff is. Today we're like, well, yeah, of course, but that's because we stand on the shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of the people who came before us, and we're able to discover things which were then passed down to us, and now we hear them and we're like, well, yeah, common sense. Well, it's not common sense at all. It's not common sense at all. Because while it's true that your earlier experiences are going to not determine, but certainly predict or influence your present behavior, the only way that you can actually change your future behavior is by examining what you've done, so where you've been in the past. So for example, if you're a person who gets angry a lot, the question becomes, why do you get so angry? Oh, that's just who I am. That ignores all of this and only focuses on this. Now, people will say things like, you shouldn't dwell too much in the past because you can't change it. Okay, but what are you hoping to change? Your future. And the only way to do that is to look at your past, to look at where you've been. And then if you can understand based off of the past, why you are the way that you are, well, now you can go into that future having a greater influence on your own behavior, your own future. Why am I so angry? We can go back and find out why. And then once you find out the why, now you can figure out what to do about it. And then once you figure out what to do about it, now you can change how it is that you do it in the future. You don't always have to go back to the past, but like I've talked about before, if you're the kind of person who, when you get mad, you punch a wall one time, and then or whatever, and then you'll be embarrassed by that, and you'll plead with somebody that's not who I am. I don't know why I did that. That's not who I am. You don't know why you did it, but guess what? It absolutely is who you are. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done it. You know it's a lemon tree because lemons come out of it. You know it's an apple tree because apples come from it. You know that you're an angry person who punches walls when you get angry because you punched a wall when you got angry. Oh, but one thing, one time doesn't determine me. No, but it certainly points to you, doesn't it? Because you would think it's really strange if an apple came out of a lemon tree. It's an impossibility. Whatever you're doing is coming out of you. Whatever actions you're engaging in come out of you. Whatever it is. If you're a hard worker, there's a reason for it. If you're a slacker, there's a reason for it. And you can try to change that behavior, but it's so much easier if you know why you are the way that you are. In other words, if you genuinely look at yourself and say, oh, no, I'm not the kind of person who punches a wall when I get angry. I just did it one time. But that doesn't mean that that's who I am. It's exactly who you are under those circumstances, under that pressure, with that kind of pushing. And if you ignore that, then you're going to repeat it in the future. Guaranteed. If instead you can look at yourself and say, I am the person who punches walls when I get that angry, under those circumstances, pushed that far by that person, and now you can kind of start to work in the future to not be in that position. But you first have to accept that thing about yourself. That's the really hard part about churning up our past. We have to accept some things about our past, to accept who we are today. And too often we use this word, accept who I am, to just kind of say, oh, that's just who I am. We fold our arms. And we post it on Instagram. If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. And as we said before, those are people who are usually at their worst. It's usually very toxic people who post stuff like that. And it doesn't mean that you're a terrible person, but what it does mean is that you're a person who's given up on improving yourself. What I mean when I say accept who you are, it means acknowledge who you are. I'm a person who does this. Therefore, I have to be sure to not be in that position in the future. It's like if you're a person who's addicted to cocaine. What should you do? Don't be around cocaine. It's that simple. If you're a person who struggles and you yield to peer pressure, maybe then, therefore, you shouldn't be around peer pressure. But you first have to acknowledge that about yourself. But those are really uncomfortable things to acknowledge about ourselves. Crap, I'm an addict. Crap, I have a weak personality that gives in to people around me. So these are all very hard things to accept about ourselves. But if we're going to do anything about this future, then we have to change those things about ourselves. That's first, of course, to acknowledge what we are, so that you can acknowledge it. And so we're stuck in these two things. We're stuck between the churned up and examined past. That's the work that she's talking about. And then she goes on to say, and the future that waits for our work. So the same work that we're doing right now, we're going to be doing it in the future as well. It's the same work. And that's, of course, the more work you do about your past, the less you're going to have to do in the future. Because you find yourself doing things in the future that you never would have imagined yourself doing. I mean, this is one of the things like when you talk to, I imagine if you talk to, I'm trying to think of anybody who wouldn't absolutely say this, but when we're younger, we hold ideals, we think, I would never do that. Like, I wonder how many of you are absolutely convinced that you're going to be way better parents than your parents are. We've been saying that for thousands of years. Shouldn't we be perfect parents by now? If that's true, that we're always going to be better parents than our parents were? But we're not. We're repeating the same mistakes. And that's because when you become a parent, I've been told, you start to learn things. Like you realize that that you're going to behave the same way as your parents did minor ways. Like, I remember talking to a friend of mine when we were younger. It used to piss him off when, like, his mom would punish both him and his brother both her and her brother for doing things that, you know, like arguing in the back seat or whatever. So mom would just turn and punish both of them. It used to piss her off. Guess what she does today? She has 3 kids, and guess what she does? Yeah, it makes sense to her now to do all that because she's not looking for justice. When you're a kid and it's like, but I didn't do anything wrong. Debatable. But even if you know, you have to be able to step out of it and say, I'm sure that to my mom it looks like I did. Because all that mom wants, she doesn't want resolution to the fight. She just wants everyone to be quiet because she's trying to drive or she's trying to make a phone call. She has a very different interest than you have. And that's because she feels that as a little kid, your interests are fleeting, but the thing that she's working on, like driving a car so that you don't die, is very important. Stuff that we can't conceive of as kids. And so when you get older, you'll start to realize that those same kind of interests, and you'll start to behave in that same way. Probably. And so I guess the point is that so a lot of times our parents aren't as bad as we think that they are, because they're doing what they're doing the best they possibly can under the circumstances that they're under. You know, is it ideal? No. How many ideals are there? There's only one ideal in the world. Only one. Like when you say, like I'll talk to someone that's like, well, you know, I'm not the best parent in the world, and I'll say, there only is one best parent in the world. I don't know who they are. It's like when someone says, like, it's not the best taco in the world, but it's good. Well, there's only one best taco, right? I didn't ask you, is that the best taco you've ever had? I just asked him, was it good? Well, it's not the best. Well, but is it good? I didn't ask you if it was the best. You know, we hold things to artificial standards. And so that future that waits for our work is waiting for us because if we don't resolve what we've been through, and if we don't internalize it and accept it about ourselves, meaning acknowledge it, not just write off, but acknowledge it, then we can't become better. You know? So, like, I think what you're going to find is that in life, if there's something that you think that you're invulnerable to, and you say, "Oh, I would never," fill in the blank. Get ready, because you're about to do it. You probably will end up doing it. You don't know that. I would never. Yeah, you're right. What do I know? I know what the studies show. I know what a lot of life experience and anecdotes talking with people, but moreover, I know what the research shows. And the reason for it is because that typically is an overreaction to things. It's an exaggeration. I would never. Sounds like you're covering something up. And even if you're not, then that's probably the thing that you're not going to be guarded against. It's probably the thing that you're not going to be guarded against. And if you're not guarded against something, that's where you become vulnerable. If you aren't guarded against the influence of your past life, then that's the thing that you're going to be vulnerable to in your present life, and that's the thing that you're going to carry with you into your future life. So, turn up the past. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to suck, of course. Maybe it'll be wonderful. That'd be great, you know. Because we oftentimes think also, I have to look into why I'm so troubled. That's not it, man. Also look at why you're so good. Look at why you're so positive. Look at the things that have gone right in your life that have set you forward to a positive path. And if we're only focusing on the negative, and of course we think everything's negative. If you watch the news, you would think that the world is, we're 2 seconds from midnight, or 2 seconds from nuclear war. Everything's going to hell. The globe is melting, and there's going to be a nuclear war in Europe that's going to spread all over the world. None of that's true. It's what makes the news headlines. But when's the last time you watched something on the news and they said some really positive stuff? There's a neat Instagram account, by the way, called Global Positive News. And if you follow Global Positive News, they send you positive news stories every day. And then you can, of course, if you do that, they'll send you recommendations for other places. It gives you a bit more balance. You know what I'm saying is that your past doesn't just suck. Your future doesn't just suck. It's a mixture of these things. So do the work, find out. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Simple-ish.